Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. I know some random gig. Actually, no, for me it is 6 p.m. For you over there on the West Coast or the left coast, as I just decided it now must be called. It is it is 3 p.m. But for me it is 6. Yes, Dana. I know Dana's in the chat bullying me about the time as always. Tick tock, and the the third part of that is a word that you would only use on your Patreon, Dana. You wouldn't say that just openly in the chat. So, anyway, as always, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for joining me. I will be responding to questions that were submitted ahead of time by my Patreon patrons and channel members first. So if you have anything for me in the live chat, please hold on to it if you can until I get through the patron and member questions, because before I get through the patron and member questions, I will not be paying full attention to the live chat because I'll be focusing on the patron and member questions. So speaking of which, let's get started with the patron and member questions. And the first one of those comes from Ahoyerno, who says, do you think Biden will be able to resist the constant pressure to join the war with Russia? Is there pressure? Is there constant pressure? I'm not really perceiving that there's constant pressure to join the war in Ukraine. I don't even know if that's what Zelensky has asked for. Certainly not from the United States. If anything, there's pressure in the opposite way. There's people who are worried about even the possibility that the United States would join the war and would be very quick to push back against that. And I'm talking about people in government, not just the common people, the American public. I don't think there's much appetite at all at the moment in this country for us to actually join that conflict. So yeah, I think Biden will be able to resist it, because again, unless I'm reading it completely wrong, or there's stuff that obviously there's stuff that I don't know, but just from where I sit, yeah, I think he'll be able to resist the pressure, because I don't really read it as constant pressure to join the war. But like I say, I could be wrong. I am just a dipshit with a YouTube channel. Lisa Garrison says, I'm a couple of months away from my premiere as a VTuber, and your Ask a YouTuber series has helped. Any tips for getting started on other platforms? Not really. I mean, I'm pretty much just a YouTuber and podcasts, but I don't actually handle the production or the distribution of the podcasts I'm on. That's Jason's job. That's a Jason problem. So I really only have direct experience with YouTube, but I can't imagine it would be that different on any other platform. I mean, be it a podcast platform or another video sharing platform. I think the most important thing, first and foremost, is to just do good work, to figure out what you're going to do, what the show is going to be, what its voice is going to be, and then, get into the nitty gritty of the platform, learn the ins and outs, etc. I mean, I've never streamed on my own on Twitch ever. So I know nothing about doing anything on Twitch specifically. Maybe there are people who are more experienced Twitch streamers, who could be better equipped to advise you on that. But the general advice is figure out what your show is, figure out who you are as a personality, as a presenter, as whatever you are in the show, and do that, and then figure out the best way to give your show, whatever it is, the best chance to find an audience on a given platform. But that will differ depending on what the platform is. But like I said, other than YouTube, I really have no experience that I can offer you. So apologies for that, but best of luck. Blue Tree says, hi, Steve. Last year, you and your viewers helped me name my cat, Domino, who joined my two dogs, Astro and Cosmo. Sadly, Cosmo passed away from cancer, and I am now planning to adopt a new dog. I will need, once again, your help in naming this new fellow, who is an Australian cattle dog. My top choices are Mando and Tycho after the Danish astronomer. Any other suggestions? Just to give you some background info, my previous dogs were named Lando, Mongo, Solo, Momo, and Jojo the dog-faced boy. All had long and happy lives. Well, I'm very, very happy to hear that last part particularly. Well, given the history, I would say, I mean, you've had a Lando and a Solo, so I suppose a Mando would be appropriate. But I don't know. I mean, Mando is a great name, but I don't know. I Googled Australian cattle dogs right before the stream started, just so I would have some idea of what your dog will look like. And oh, what an adorable breed. They're just such cute pups. And so I don't know. I feel like if you're adopting an Australian cattle dog, they might be a Tycho. I don't know. And Tycho is a great name for a dog because not only do you have the history of it being named after the great astronomer, but there's also that great humongous crater on the moon called Tycho, which, is also named after the astronomer. But you could have a dog named not only after a famous astronomer, but also named after a crater on the moon named after that famous astronomer. I would find that difficult to pass up. So if you're putting a gun to my head and asking me to choose between the top contenders of Mando and Tycho, I would choose Tycho. But obviously there is precedence in your past dogs' names for Mando as well. But count me as a vote for Tycho. Alexander Darkov says, how do you feel about actors who are typecast for roles where they are only cast for one kind of role, such as serious, when they want to do funny? Well, see, there's multiple sides to that. An actor who has more range that they are just never allowed to show is sad. If an actor has can do a broader array of characters than they're typically cast to play, and they're just not cast to play those kinds of roles because of typecasting, because they get associated with a particular kind of character, that can be sad. And I'm sure from the actor's perspective, that can be incredibly frustrating. But typecasting can also disguise an actor's limitations. I mean, if you are an actor who is very, very good at playing one particular type of role, and maybe John Wayne wanted to be a rubber-faced slapstick comedian, right? Maybe in his heart, he dreamed one day of being, this goofball slapstick comedian, right? But if he didn't actually have the skills in order to do that, and from all indications, he did not, then in his case, typecasting would protect him because nobody would have to see John Wayne try and fail miserably to be a slapstick comedian, right? So in some cases, when actors have certain limitations where they excel within their range, but their range is maybe narrower than they think it is or than they wish it was, then typecasting can actually help them, because it stops them from making fools of themselves and ruining their credibility. So yeah, it really depends on the actor. It is not a bad practice in and of itself. It can be very positive for an actor's career, in addition to the particular projects that it is used in. But there are times, probably many times, when it has served as a very frustrating limitation for an actor who has the ability to stretch and it just isn't given that opportunity. So it really depends. But as far as how I feel about it in general, it's not automatically a bad thing. David Colby, would it kill Star Trek to remember inertia exists? Yes. See, the joke is that at the speeds their ships accelerate, everyone on board would be super dead. Anyway, you now have the ability to turn inertia on, well, technically turn the inertial dampeners off, but you know what I mean, and instantly smear one character from any Star Trek show against the wall, killing them. Which would it be? Hard mode activate, it cannot be Loaxana Troi. Double hard mode, it can't be a villain either. Ooh. So I can smear one Star Trek character against the wall, but it can't be Loaxana, and it can't be a villain. Nurse Chapel. Because, I mean, you're barely killing anybody anyway. She's barely even a character. We were talking about Nurse Chapel, and I mean the classic Trek version of Nurse Chapel, the Majel Barrett Nurse Chapel. There's going to be a new Nurse Chapel in Strange New Worlds, and judging by the trailer they released for her character yesterday, or within the last couple of days, I think I just saw it yesterday. They're going to take a bold step and change her classic character by giving her a personality. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing the new Nurse Chapel and seeing how good of a character she is. But the original Nurse Chapel from Classic Trek is just basically there to occasionally pine for Spock. And other than that, she just hands Dr. McCoy stuff. So she's barely even a character. So she's the one who's getting smeared. Easy choice. Yeah. Is it a coincidence that she's played by the same actress who also played Loxana Troy? No, it is not. Matt says, so I've heard you remark about Dungeons and Dragons in the past or other tabletop games and seemingly expressed your displeasure in the game. Why? Have you ever tried D&D and just wasn't a fan? Just curious. I've never actually played it or any other tabletop role-playing game. But the reason I've never done that is because I've never been remotely interested in it. I've never seen other people do it or heard other people talk about it even and thought, oh, that sounds like fun. Like never once in my life have I ever heard. And, Dana is a gamer and has done a lot of tabletop role-playing gaming in the past. Jason is a role-playing gamer and has played D&D and other tabletop role-playing games in the past and loves that stuff. So like two of my favorite people, two of the most important people to me in the world have experience with tabletop role-playing games and enjoy them and have talked to me and also talked to each other in my presence about them a lot with a lot of enthusiasm, right? And it's nice to see my friends be happy and be enthusiastic about stuff. But again, never for one moment has it ever seemed like something I would be interested in doing or I would want to do or try to do. It seems like the most boring thing in the world to me. So that's just me. I don't want to take anybody's joy away. I know a lot of people who watch me and probably a lot of people who are watching this right now are big time tabletop role-playing gamers and they love it. And I would never want to shame them or shit on them or try to take away their happiness or their fun for anything. But it does not seem like, a remotely fun thing to do to me. So no, that's why. Actually, I remember, I think the first time I ever actually saw other people playing was, and I think I've told this story before. I went to a sleepover for one of my friend's birthdays in like middle school, I think. My buddy Dave would always, when he was growing up, he had this big house, and every year for his birthday, he would invite a bunch of us over and we'd have a sleepover the weekend closest to his birthday for his birthday party. And there was one year where, eventually there were enough of us there that eventually we kind of broke up into separate groups, and some of us were like in the living room watching a movie and some of us were in the kitchen, whatever. So I was in the living room watching a movie with some of the other guys, and I got up and went into the kitchen for something, and 4 or 5 of us had sort of split off, and they were in the kitchen at the table playing D&D or whatever it was. I don't know if it was actually D&D, but it was like a tabletop role-playing game. And they said, "Hey, Steve, do you want to join? Do you want to play?" And I stood there and watched them, and I said, "Well, let me just watch for a second, right?" And they kept doing whatever they were doing, and I stood there and watched for about a minute, and I thought, "Okay, this isn't for me. Like this just is." This doesn't seem like fun at all. I don't get why anybody would want to do this. So it's just not my thing. And it never has been. And I doubt very much that it ever will be. But thank you very much for asking. Stephen Sutton says, what's so great about Switzerland? Well, the flag's a plus. Sorry, your best worst joke, if you would be so kind. This is great because David had the inertia thing, and now their flag's a plus. That's fantastic. I like that a lot. Best worst joke, the dog with the wounded foot who walked into the saloon in the Old West, and the bartender said, "What's your business here?" And the dog said, "I'm looking for the man who shot my paw." I don't know if that's my best worst joke, but it's pretty bad, and it's the one that just occurred to me off the top of my head, and I do love it. So So, that's the bad joke you're getting. Lackluster 9 to 5 says, I'm not really a fan or anything, but I heard you're going to bring back Steve and Stuffy. I practically grew up on that show. Whatever you do, could you not make it woke? I'm sick of seeing political stuff polluting the new stuff in every franchise I've loved since I was little. I know you have your views, but that doesn't mean they have to now be shoehorned in. Just keep it as it was, about a grown man playing with his toys, okay? What a great question. Yes, I promise when the Stuffy videos do come back, and Dana and I have actually been working on the writing of them more recently. We've been writing new scripts the last week or so. So again, still no schedule for when the finished videos will be out. It'll still probably be a good long time, but we have been back to work on them recently. But anyway, when the Stuffy videos come back, I promise they will be just, in terms of their political voice, they will be just like they used to be. In terms of how much they express my personal political views, that part will certainly not change at all from how it used to be. You have my solemn oath on that. Next question is from Stephen G. Clenard. Steve, you're a DC Comics guy. Maybe you can help me with some questions that have been vexing me for some time. Are there any DC Comics questions that have been vexing you? Speaking of which, do you think this would be a good premise for a supervillain? Occasionally phoning it in, man. Thoughts? I think that is a great villain that a lot of people reading the comics or watching the show or the movie will feel a great affinity for and will even aspire to, I think. I mean, I know you're not necessarily supposed to be aspiring to be like the villain, but yeah, I think there's definitely an aspirational element to that character, for sure. Are there any DC Comics questions that have been vexing me? Why do they keep rebooting it? Just stop fucking with your continuity and just hire good writers and good artists to just do comics. Just write comics. Just write some fucking Wonder Woman comics. Just write some fucking Superman comics. Who gives a fuck about the history and the continuity and which universe? Just fucking forget all that stuff. Stop crisising everything every 5 or 10 years. Yeah, just that's my question. Why? Stop. Just stop. Stop trying to tidy up the continuity. Fuck that. Who cares? And just tell fucking comic book stories, please. Isaiah Taylor with the promised late seating fanfic. Jason. Alicia Silverstone as Cher Horowitz, who now feeds her children like a bird. Stacey Dash as Dion Davenport. Do we have to talk about Stacey Dash, Steve? Steve. No, not really. I'm good. Jason. Okay, moving on. Brittany Murphy as Ty Frazier. Rest in peace, Brittany. Jason. Okay, Steve, let's put on our plaid miniskirts and get our brick phones, and let's dive into that 90s teen epic, Clueless. Steve, take it away. Well, we start off with, hey, Steve, do you want to know what other movie came out next to this one? What? Apollo 13. Ooh. So all the nerds went to the other movie and all the cool kids went to this movie. And once again, the theaters were all segregated. Well, I'd rather them be segregated based on taste in film than race, my friend. Steve and Jason laugh. You know what? Not a question. I feel like I must chastise you gently because that was not a question. But I do think you have captured our voices quite well. I can hear Jason and myself in an episode of Late Seating in that. So, and that's a nice bit of writing. Good ear for dialogue, my friend. Good ear for dialogue. Some random geek who has their most well-disguised and important mini essay question. Butts? Yeah, I'm in favor. I'm in favor of butts. Yes, I would say, I mean, yeah, I like them. I won't even say I like big butts. I like butts of many sizes. and for other reasons besides sexual gratification as well. I mean, they're just so useful in so many ways. So yeah, butts, 100%. Is the thumb appropriate given the subject matter? I'll put that down. I mean, I'm not. It's just right. It's like here. It's not anywhere else. So, Cassie Volpine, how would you type with boxing gloves on? You have to use your gloved hands. No voice to text or holding a pencil in your mouth or some crap like that. Just you, the gloves, and a keyboard trembling for some sweet boxy typey action. Sincerely yours, Tim Bolt Itchy Batch. Boy, what a great name. So you are depriving me of an accommodation. You are saying, look, boxy hands, you have to type with your boxy hands. You cannot have a wand or any other type of accommodation. You must type with your boxy hands. Very well. The thing about boxing gloves is, even though they're big and bulky, they if you make the fist with them, they do have a curve, right? And the thumb is the same way. The thumb, it's big and puffy, but it comes to kind of a curvy point. So I think if I were able to extend the thumb on the boxing glove far enough, I think I might be able to hit individual keys on the keyboard with my boxing gloved thumbs. So if I turn my hands this way, like I'm Siskel and Ebert after watching a really bad movie, right? I could maybe thumb type with my boxing gloves. Now, my error rate, I'm sure, would go way, way higher than it usually is because, generally speaking, I'm a fairly good typist with a fairly low error rate. But with boxing gloves, the error rate, I'm sure, would shoot up. But I think I could manage it. I could type somewhat legibly using the boxing glove thumbs. I think. But I've never tried it, and I have no intention of ever trying it. But thank you for the question. Agent Meister, Peldor Joyce, Steve, please say the names of these 3 states in the order they are given here as fast as you can and as many times as you can. Okay, here we go. Ohio, Iowa, Hawaii, 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 Ohio, Iowa, Hawaii. That's about as fast as I can do it. And then it just goes, and then it just becomes, I wonder how fast the Micro Machines guy could have said it. Remember the Micro Machines guy? I can't think of his name. But the Micro Machines guy, the fast talking guy. Ohio, Iowa, Hawaii. I bet he could do it really, really fast. Excellent diction as well. That was his secret. It's not just the speed, it's that he pronounces everything. Rock hard diction. So, next question is from Dan G. Steve, scenario. You are a member of an intelligence agency. It is your job to bring top secret information to an ally. The information is all in your head, no paper. You will be debriefed when you meet your contact. It is imperative that the enemy not get a hold of this info. The fate of the world hinges on your success. Suddenly, boom! You're captured by the enemy. You wake up in a sparse room, tied to a chair. A single light bulb dangling over your head. A fearsome Tor Johnson lookalike walks in and says, "We have ways to make you talk." Or I guess if it was Tor Johnson, he would say, "We have ways to make you talk." Tor Johnson did not have rock hard diction. 2 hulking men wheel in a TV and turn it on. There, programmed to play on a loop forever if need be, is the 3.5-hour version of Heaven's Gate. They leave you alone. What happens next? Do you crack? No, not for Heaven's Gate. I don't think Heaven's Gate would be bad enough to make me crack. No. Moulin Rouge. If I had to sit through, I think probably after 4 or 5 times through Moulin Rouge, I would tell them whatever they wanted to know. Heaven's Gate. I mean, Heaven's Gate is bad, but Heaven's Gate isn't bad in a way that makes me, that I find like viscerally offensive and just makes me want to stop watching it and curse the universe that enabled it to exist, right? It's a really bad, pretentious movie, but it's not like immediately off-putting in the way that Moulin Rouge is. So no, I think I could hang with Heaven's Gate for a while. I'm not saying I could hang with it forever. I mean, maybe eventually it would get to me, and I'd be like, I can't look at Chris Christopherson another second, and I would give it up. But yeah, I think I could hold on. I could endure under Heaven's Gate torture for quite a while. Steve. Hey, Steve. Will Smith had some big news this week. He finally won the Best Actor Oscar that he rightly deserved. After he won, I noticed an atheist activist group mocked him for thanking God for his win, saying it was embarrassing. Now, I'm an atheist, and while I do think, as a species, we would be better off without religion, I'm not going to mock others for their beliefs. Within reason, I'm looking at you Scientologists, and I found this tweet from this group extremely embarrassing for our community. Do you agree? Do you think I'm crazy for thinking Will Smith thanking God for his achievements isn't a big deal and that some people need to grow up? Thank you for all you do. No, I agree with you completely. I've always kind of rolled my eyes when atheists or when atheists and especially atheist organizations take little things like that, like someone thanking God for an award or thanking God after they win a sports championship or something like that, or any kind of achievement. What are we doing? Like, why are we trying to embarrass and shame people unless someone is using their faith as a weapon against people or in an attempt to justify bad behavior on their part or bad public policy or something like that? If it's just a person making an expression of their personal faith, what are we doing? Why are we mocking people for that? That what does that get us? Right? Do you think if Will Smith sees that atheist group's post making fun of him for saying thank God, you think that's going to make any difference to him? You think he's going to reevaluate his religious beliefs and go, actually, they have a point. Belief in God is absurd. You know what? I'm an atheist now. No, he's probably going to think, oh, look at these assholes making fun of me for my religious beliefs. Yeah, it's a really bad look. It accomplishes nothing. It seems petulant and immature and just dumb. So no, I am not in favor of that sort of thing. If people believe in God and it's their personal faith and they're not using it to hurt anybody, they're just using it as a way of expressing their gratitude or expressing their feelings in the aftermath of a personal accomplishment, just let people do it. You know, just let Will Smith say thank God, and if Will Smith believes in God, let him thank God after he wins an Oscar. What is the harm in that? There is no harm in that. So, no, I agree with you. I think it's silly. I do agree. I mean, I'm an atheist too. I do agree with you that I think as a species, we would be better off without religion, but it doesn't, making fun of people who express their personal religious beliefs in moments of personal accomplishment does not get us any closer to that. If anything, it gets us further away from it because it makes atheists and atheist groups look like jackasses. So yeah, you and I think are completely on the same page with that. Jim Baker, fairness is the cornerstone of all sports. The rules are based around it. The equipment is based on it. And the categories of division are based on it. It is so important, in fact, that if anything disrupts that delicate balance of fairness, then the game is ruined for everyone. Thus, we try, to the best of our abilities, to maintain the most fair playing field that is possible in the interest of trying to preserve the meaningfulness of the competition. There is a quantifiable advantage in some sports to have been born with a cock and balls. There's the transphobia. I was waiting for that. Mountains of sports statistics confirm this well-established fact, swimming being one such sport. How can we ever be sure that Thomas does not retain some of the advantage she was born with before climbing in with the girls? The shadow of doubt casts a pallor over her win and taints it with the question of unfairness. If the legitimacy of the win is in doubt, then its meaning drops to zero and all cause to celebrate such a victory evaporates. Thoughts? You should do more research before you ask an incredibly transphobic and bigoted question. Like you should know that the NCAA, which is the governing body that oversees the events that Leah Thomas competed in, and the one event that Leah Thomas won at the NCAA championships, are aware of these issues and have regulations and standards and qualifications in place to ensure that it will be a fair playing field, to ensure that a given athlete, be they trans or not, will not have an unfair advantage over the other athletes that they are competing against. It's not as though, and I'm not saying that you are necessarily saying this, although again, I must stress, I find your question incredibly transphobic. But I don't think you're suggesting that what a lot of other people have suggested who are even worse on this, which this fantasy that like, well, male athletes will just pretend to be women or will pretend to be trans in order to compete against cis women and beat them and win medals and break world records that way, right? In organized competition, that sort of thing is impossible because there are rules and regulations in place. A male athlete cannot just up and decide one day, oh, by the way, I'm a woman, I'm going to compete with the women now, and just go do that. You can't do that. You need to, there has to be a process that, first of all, verifies that you are actually trans, and second of all, verifies that you have gone through certain steps and met certain requirements so that you are competing on a level playing field with the other competitors, right? So none of this is relevant. None of this is relevant. And I wish that you had done some homework before just diving straight in with, when you're born with a cock and balls, it gives you certain advantages, and that's not fair. Fuck that, and fuck you. And if you want to stop being a patron of mine, I invite you to stop being a patron of mine. And if you choose not to stop being a patron of mine, maybe think about changing your thinking and fixing your attitude about this issue, because this is pretty disgusting. Arnyat says, how do you think someone new to Trek would experience the franchise if they watched it all in Trek timeline order, starting with Enterprise? Would be complicated when they came to Discovery, though. I'm not sure why it would be complicated when they came to Discovery. I guess if they watch everything in timeline order, then I guess Discovery would be the second show they watch. I don't see how, first of all, it makes no sense to watch it in that order anyway, because even though that's the order that the shows fall in the fictional timeline, that doesn't automatically mean it's the best order in which to watch everything, because Enterprise was made after, TNG and DS9 and Voyager, even though it takes place before them in the fictional timeline, the fact that it was made after means that it contains references and allusions and other sorts of things that only really land and make sense if you have seen the other shows first, right? And the same thing with Discovery, very much the case with Discovery. So I don't think it really makes sense to watch the shows that way. But if you do watch them that way, I don't really see how Discovery would be more complicated than Enterprise or TOS or anything else. I don't see how that, unless this new person to Star Trek is going to get hung up on why things look different. If they're going to be the type of person that's going to be like, well, how comes everything looks like this in Discovery, but then in classic Trek, which supposedly takes place just a few years later, everything looks totally different and the technology is different. And honestly, at that point, I would just say, look, if you can't get over it, then just watch something else. Maybe Star Trek isn't for you. You've just started watching it. It's not too late for you. You can still get out. And that's what I would suggest. But no, I don't. I think the best way to experience it is not to make a point of watching it in timeline order. I don't think that's the best way to watch it at all. Orion McMurray says, hello again, Steve. Here's my question. Would you object if they revamped the original animated series with today's animation style? All they would do is take the audio and build new animation with it. They did something similar with the original shows, using computers to enhance the effects and ships. Your thoughts? Referring, I take it to Star Trek, the animated series. I wouldn't object, but I wouldn't really see the point. But then again, I didn't really see the point to them redoing the special effects in classic Trek either. I think those turned out really great. Like, I enjoy watching the remastered versions where they have the new special effects. I think they did a really good job, and the show looks gorgeous like that. But it's not like the original cheesy 1960s special effects are fine. It is what it is. You know what I mean? It's Star Trek. So like, I don't, other than, maybe the thought was, well, it'll look better this way in HD, or, it'll be better for the show in the future now that it's going to be shown ad nauseum on streaming services. Maybe it's better to have updated special effects. I don't know what the actual thinking was, or just a commercial decision. We can sell more DVDs and Blu-rays this way if we re-release it with updated special effects. But personally, I didn't really see there certainly was no artistic necessity to revamp the special effects in classic Trek. I don't mind that they did it. Like I said, I think it looks fine. And if they did something similar with the animated series, I suppose that would be fine too, provided that they did a good job and the show that they produced as a result of that looked good. But I mean, it's not like there's any real artistic reason to do it. The animated series is fine as it is, you know, but I mean, no, I wouldn't object, but I just don't really get the point of doing something like that. Madeline says, good evening, Steve. What's your favorite sci-fi robot, not android? Is it Box from Logan's Run? I feel like it's Box. It's not Box. No, it's not. It's Robbie the robot from Forbidden Planet. Although I was thinking, depending on how broadly you define the term android, I suppose Robbie might be considered an android, because even though he doesn't look human, he is in a roughly humanoid form. He does have 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, and a head. So if Robbie, and it's your question, so I don't know. You will have to you will have to make this determination yourself. But if Robbie does count as an android and is therefore disqualified, then Johnny 5 from Short Circuit is my favorite robot. So it's one of those two. My first choice is Robbie the robot, but if he cannot serve in the position of Steve's favorite robot in your judgment, then it's Johnny 5 from Short Circuit. And Short Circuit 2. Let us not forget Short Circuit 2. The Indoctrinator. There's a rumor that you have an idea for the very first ever live action Star Trek sitcom. A rumor, you say. What can you tell us about the premise of this show, its core cast, the pilot, and the lessons learned about friendship, courage, and following your dreams? Oh, and honesty. That might come up too. Well, I don't know if I have developed it quite to this point. I do have a general concept. I do have a title, and I do have a premise. So the general concept is, yes, it will be a live action Star Trek sitcom, and it will be shot on a soundstage. It'll be a traditional, like, multi-camera sitcom filmed in front of a live studio audience, set aboard a starship, right? And the title is Star Trek, My Mother the Borg. And the premise is that there is a Starfleet officer, our main character on the show, who is serving aboard a starship, and her mother, or his mother, I'm not really firm on what the gender of the main character will be, but let's just say the main character will be a lady, so just for the sake of conversation. So her mother has been assimilated by the Borg, but she managed to separate her mother from the rest of the collective, kind of like Hugh from iBorg and TNG, and Seven of Nine and Voyager. But unlike Seven of Nine, this officer has not been able to remove all of her mother's Borg implants and various paraphernalia. So her mom is still obviously like all Borged out, right? She's like, you look at her mom and it's like, oh, that's a Borg, right? Not a former Borg, but that's a Borg. And because our main character is so nervous about her mom, the Borg, being discovered by her, you know, let's say the captain of the ship is like this famous Borg, you know, anti-Borg captain. Like he was at the Battle of Wolf 359, and boy, he sure hates the Borg. And he sure would go ballistic if he ever found out there was a Borg on his ship. So she has to keep her mother, the Borg, secret from the rest of the crew. But she has a best friend on board who knows about her mother, the Borg. And together they get into wacky hijinks that are often centered around keeping the secret of the fact that her mother is on board the ship and her mother is a Borg. So that's the starting point. That's from where we proceed with the show. I don't have a whole lot other than that, but that's the basic idea. Her mother is a Borg. My Mother the Borg. Filmed in front of a studio audience. So yeah, that's the idea. And the other crucial thing about this comedy, which ordinarily I wouldn't feel the need to specify, but I feel like I have to specify this, is that with this comedy, we will be writing jokes. There will be actual jokes in the show, like real actual jokes. Okay, I want that understood. But anyway, yeah, that's the idea. That's the idea. Star Trek, my mother, the Borg. General Contact Unit Problem Child says, your trans athletes vid made me think about a hypothetical situation that does not apply to trans women. Suppose an athlete was so good at a sport that letting them compete basically renders the competition pointless. Like, imagine the Flash or Superman tried to enter the Olympics. Should they be barred from competing just to make the events not foregone conclusions? 2. Keeping in mind he didn't know what would happen in the future, should we fault Obama for not trying to pack the Supreme Court in 2009 when the Dems had a supermajority? Even if he couldn't have known, should he have predicted it based on how the GOP acted before? P.S. Solidarity with Ukraine. And as I've said for the last month or so, definitely echo that last sentiment, solidarity with Ukraine. We've already had that situation in sports. His name was Michael Phelps. I talked about him in my video. I mean, Michael Phelps, it's not quite a Superman or Flash situation. Like he doesn't have literal superpowers, but at his peak, he was so far ahead of other swimmers that he competed against that, I mean, and as we now know, I mean, and again, I talked about this in the video too, he had identifiable, specific physical advantages over other people that he was competing against that they didn't have, that gave him an edge. And I don't think anybody considered the sport pointless because he was there, you know, or thought about banning him because of, you know, how good he was. So no, I don't think we've had a real life situation similar to that, and everything was fine. And no, I'm not mad at Obama for not trying to pack the court. I mean, obviously in hindsight, I wish he had, knowing how things have turned out, but I'm not upset with him about that, you know? I mean, because honestly, I mean, like, no, I'm not upset with Obama about that. I mean, I guess you could say he should have known, or he should have caught on to what the Republicans were doing a lot quicker. I'll go with you as far as that. But I mean, even back then, I don't know if Obama saw Trump coming. I mean, we can say maybe he should have, but I honestly don't think he did. So I'm not mad at him about not packing the court in 2009. John Burns, hydrate, Steve. This morning I found out which countries will play Canada in the group stage of the World Cup of Soccer this November in Qatar. It's been 36 years since Canada last played in the World Cup of Soccer. Anyway, here's my question. Who's the GOAT Antifa? I love John's questions. Anyway, who's the GOAT Antifa? Churchill led Britain and the West against Hitler. Stalin led his country against Hitler, leading to Soviet armor dominating Berlin. Or Hitler. Who killed Hitler? See what I did there? Yeah, Hitler definitely was an anti-fascist right there at the very end. I mean, he killed Hitler. It's pretty hardcore. I would say it's probably General Eisenhower. You know, I mean, because they were like, what are we going to do about all these Nazis in France? And Eisenhower was like, I've got an idea. We're going to put a bunch of soldiers on boats. We're going to land the boats on the beaches of France. The soldiers are going to get off the boats, and they're just going to start killing every goddamn Nazi they see in front of them. That's pretty hardcore Antifa. So I would go, I think the all-time Antifa champion would, just in terms of body count, would have to be General Eisenhower. Matt Lordy, hi Steve. Do you have an opinion on the following cartoons from the 90s? Spider-Man the Animated Series, Beast Wars, and Reboot. Well, I never watched Beast Wars. To this day, I don't think I've ever seen an episode of Beast Wars. And same thing with Reboot. I remember Reboot being on. I remember vaguely, like, I think my brother might have watched it a little bit. Because I remember, like, seeing it on TV, like in mornings when we were getting ready for school. I guess we had a local TV station that would show Reboot early in the mornings on weekdays. So I remember seeing it on, but I never really watched it. So I have no opinion on Beast Wars or Reboot because I can't possibly have an opinion on them. I never watched them. But Spider-Man the Animated Series was regular viewing for me. Every Saturday morning I would watch that show, and I really liked it a lot. I don't think I would. It was maybe like a notch below Batman the Animated Series for me at the time. But I really enjoyed Spider-Man the Animated Series, and it did a really good job with multi-episode story arcs. I think every season of that show was structured as a multi-episode story arc. It was like the seasons would have, I don't know if the entire season was one story, but they would have like 6-episode arcs. I haven't watched much of it for a very long time, but my memory is that they mostly did a pretty good job with that in terms of the storytelling and the pacing and moving and having episodes have self-contained stories, but also like moving from one story to the next and keeping the thread of the larger story going. Like, I think they were pretty good at that. Maybe the writers of the current Star Trek shows could take some notes. But yeah, I like the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s a lot. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Scott P says, "Hey, Steve, I don't have any clever or thought-provoking questions this week, so I figured I would just ask you about baseball. What is your team? And do you plan to go to any games this year? I know you live in Maryland, so the Orioles are your team. You have my deepest sympathies, but maybe you're a Nats or Phillies fan, in which case I revoke my sympathies." No, I'm an Orioles fan. I mean, I like the Nats. I wish the Nationals success, but I don't consider myself a fan of theirs in particular. No, I'm an Orioles fan. I don't plan to go to any games this year because of COVID. I think people are nuts. Why? Anybody who goes to an event with a lot of people around while COVID is still a thing, which it is nuts. So no, I will not be going to any ball games or any large gatherings of any kind this year. Although, to be completely honest, I probably wouldn't go anyway because I'm just, I think the last time I went to an Orioles game was probably 10, 12 years ago. Me and my dad went. I got some tickets through a family friend, and me and my dad went on Father's Day to Camden Yards, and that was lovely. That was a wonderful experience. But I mean, that's the last time I went. So no, I have no plans to go to a game, and because of COVID. But even if COVID wasn't a factor, I probably still wouldn't go. But yeah, the Orioles are my team. Up until 2020, I guess, speaking of COVID, up until 2020, we had a minor league team in Hagerstown called the Suns. If you watch some of my older videos, you'll see me wearing a Suns hat. And I still have a Suns hat somewhere, but I didn't want to wear it out, so I don't wear it anymore. And they're going to be collector's items now because the Suns are no longer a team, unfortunately. After when COVID hit, the 2020 minor league baseball season was canceled. And after that, Major League Baseball decided it was going to contract the minor leagues. And one of the teams that got cut from affiliation was, unfortunately, my hometown minor league team, the Hagerstown Suns. So the Suns are no longer a thing. Next year, we are getting a new team. And they're building a new ballpark for it and everything finally, which they tried to build for the Suns for many years and just never got it off the ground. But there will be a new ballpark and there will be a new minor league team in Hagerstown as a part of the Atlantic League. We don't know what the name is going to be. We don't know if this team is also going to be called the Suns or if it's going to have a different name, but it will be a different organization. It's not the same group that owned and operated the Suns, but it'll be a new team. And so I'm kind of excited and curious to see that, but that won't be until next year. So yeah, for now, no organized professional baseball in Hagerstown. But as far as the majors, the Orioles are my team, and your sympathies are accepted and appreciated. Scott P said, that's the question I just asked. I just answered. Jacob Monroe. Hello, Steve. How I envy people living in blue states right now. The GOP here in North Carolina somehow keeps getting more infuriating. I no longer live in the 11th district, so I no longer pointlessly write letters to Madison Cawthorn, but the other day I got to see an ad for the GOP primary decrying Pat Bathroom Bill McCrory for being too liberal for such far-left policies as allowing undocumented immigrants to obtain a driver's license, one of the basic necessities to be able to work. Also, an undocumented immigrant that is supposed to be protected by DACA can end up being frozen out since the Trump administration did not accept applications, and thanks to the aforementioned tactics by the GOP, they won't have a complete paper trail for those entire 4 years. What, if anything, can the Biden administration do to help? Also, vote blue in the midterms. Well, I think the Biden administration could probably do something to help out with the DACA issue, because DACA is an executive branch policy. Basically, it's a directive to immigration authorities as to how they should enforce immigration laws. So it's not like a legislative thing. It is a status that is conferred on people on the basis of the federal government choosing to interpret the law and enforce the law in a particular way. So I would imagine the Biden administration could take action to address that problem about, not being able to apply for DACA protection fairly easily. Maybe they even have done that already. I'm not sure, but yeah, I would I would love to see the Biden administration do something to help with that if they haven't done so already. And yeah, absolutely vote blue in the midterms. Please, for the love of God. Please, for the love of God, everybody, vote blue. The midterms are this year, this November. Please vote blue in the Please vote for Democrats up and down the ballot. And first of all, please get out and vote during the midterms. Fellow Americans, of course. If you don't live in the United States, you should not be voting in our elections. But yeah, please, for Christ's sake, vote for Democrats in the midterms. Joe McClory, who turned 42 yesterday. I'm so tired of people on the right using the term freedom in their protests. It is always a selfish freedom that costs someone else something. Their freedom for religious expression is always the freedom to treat people like less than human, or to be excused from providing rights to others. When they demand freedom of bodily autonomy, it is not to keep women from being forced to remain pregnant with a child they don't want for nearly a year, but for the minor inconvenience of wearing a mask or getting a shot that is far less dangerous than what it protects. It is like the only freedoms they care about are freedom from consequence and responsibility. Guess that wasn't really a question. Could you rant on this or another word the right misuses for a little while? No, look, the thing about conservatives, the thing about Republicans is, I've said this before, and the Trump administration laid this bare for anybody who cared to look. They don't actually have principles. They pretend to have principles to get what they want. And one of the core things that conservatives want is for other people to leave them alone and to not tell them that they have to change or that they need to be better people. They resent that more than I think almost anything. They're not worried about being racist. They're worried about other people thinking they're racist and telling them they shouldn't be racist, because then that means they have to change or that they're expected to change. And they just hate being expected to do anything because they're selfish, immature people. They're adult babies. They want things their way, and they want them right now. They don't want the government to force them to do things they don't want to do. They don't want to have expectations forced on them by society, right? Even informally. Leave the government out of it. They complain about the government nonstop because they see the government as this boot on their necks, even when the government's not doing anything but asking them to get a goddamn vaccination and wear a mask during a pandemic, as you point out. But they whine and piss and moan about the government because, the government's it's big brother. It's forcing us, taking away our freedoms. It's forcing us to do things we don't want to do, right? But even informally, even if it's just like a social expectation, Like, don't say the N-word. The government's not telling you can't say the N-word. Society is saying you shouldn't say the N-word. Like, especially if you're a white person, you shouldn't say the N-word. And they hate that. They hate that. They hate being told they can't do something. They hate being told that they need to change their behavior or change their beliefs or try to grow as people. They hate that. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of freedom they want. The freedom to be able to do whatever they want and to not have to hear about it from other people. That's their definition of freedom. And it is a narcissistic, toxic definition of freedom that does not lend itself to a healthy society. Which is why you should vote for Democrats in the midterms. Tied it all together. You like that? And finally, last question. Siamak, who is approaching but not actually late. That's true. You did get your question in plenty of time, although it was the final question I received. I'll just put that out there. Anyway. Good day, Steve. Thank you for your valiant and largely successful pronunciation of my holiday on the last Ask Away. Oh, you're welcome, my friend. I have to say I'm enjoying this season of Picard. I know you aren't so much. I respect that. I agree that the spots they're cutting the episodes is odd, but I think it will hang together a lot better as a season when binged. But regardless, the point I was going to raise is that I took the inclusion of ICE as a clear evil entity, if not outright antagonist, accomplished the political point of the storytelling. I didn't really need the story to clunk me over the head with why it's evil. Again, maybe because I already know it's bad, I don't need it, where others would. Given the structure of the story, was there a way you would have addressed it? Or would it have taken a significant rewrite of the story structure to properly address in your view? Thanks for your consideration of my train of thought question. I mean, I think the season so far could have used a significant rewrite. I think judging from, I feel like it could have used a second draft. But I think it would have helped a lot if Rios had been a more active character in that story, in that subplot, and if we had seen that it had any emotional impact on him whatsoever. Like, that was one of my problems with it. I didn't like the fact that apparently the show has nothing to say about ICE other than ICE is bad, which I agree, right? But like, that's it. That's all you got. Your big statement about ICE is bad. Okay. I guess, whatever. I mean, I'll give you this. It's always nice to have a reminder that Star Trek is on our side. Like, I think it's valuable in that way. It's nice for Star Trek to say, hey, we're still on your side. We're still trying to do the right thing here. We're trying to rep these progressive, humane, humanistic values, right? And obviously ICE and the way ICE treats immigrants cuts completely against that. So we're going to portray ICE as the bad guys because that's what they are. Right? Like, it's nice for that reason. Star Trek saying, hey, we're still on your side. We get that these are the bad guys, right? Okay, I appreciate that. But story-wise, not only is it kind of shallow and just sort of ICE is bad and that's it, but it sidelines Rios. After Rios is taken into custody by those ICE agents, he literally does nothing but just sit there or stand around. He does nothing for an entire episode except look around and maybe talk to some people in the cage with him, and that's it. So making Rios a more active character, having him have some sort of emotional reaction to what he's seeing, maybe showing that he's conflicted about this, that he knows that they have to accomplish a specific mission in this timeline, and they're not allowed to do additional changes. No butterflies, as Agnes told them. They're not supposed. They don't want to change the past other than undoing this one bad change. Having him be conflicted about that, having him look around at these other people in the cage and thinking, we have the technology to save all of these people. Maybe even write his rescue so that instead of Seven and Raffi just using the magic tricorder to stop the bus, and then everybody just kind of getting off and going on their own separate ways, which, by the way, isn't that a butterfly? Was that ICE bus supposed to be stopped and everybody freed? Isn't that like a whole bunch of butterflies they just let loose? Never mind. Maybe that'll come back. I don't know. Maybe the writers will deal with that later. I don't have a lot of faith in that, but maybe they will. I hope they do. But maybe instead of that, maybe Seven and Raffi can infiltrate the camp in that abandoned Walmart or wherever it was where Rios was being held in the cage, right? And maybe they can be there and say, okay, Chris, let's go. We're getting you out of here. And they can only take him, right? But he wants to take some more people. And then he has to face that decision of like, well, you know, we should get more of these people out. It's not right to just leave them here. We have the power to free them. Why don't we free them? You know, hell, we have the power to destroy this whole thing. Do you realize in this time period, there's an entire agency of the federal government that is doing this, that is abusing people and mistreating people and in the name of the law? In the name of like national policy, these are official agents of the government that are doing. We have the power to stop all of this. And then Seven or Raffi could say, yes, but it's not for us to fix. Like these look, we've been to the better future that comes from this. We've been to the good 24th, 25th century where we live in the Federation utopia and Earth is united and peaceful and free and equal. Like we've been to the better future. But we can't do that for these people. They need to fix this themselves. We can't fix it for them. I think that would have had a lot more impact than just Rios being present while ICE is shitty to people. You know, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like there are definitely, even without like a major rewrite, I feel like there are things they could have and should have done that they didn't do. But yeah, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. Anyway, that is it for the patron and member questions. And I will turn now to the live chat, and we will hang out for the next, let's say 50 minutes, 50 minutes, because I do have a wrestling pay-per-view tonight that starts at 8. And it is the Ring of Honor, Super Card of Honor, where the big match I'm looking forward to is the Briscoes versus FTR for the ROH World Tag Team title. So I do not want to miss that show. So I will be wrapping up this stream by a few minutes before 8 o'clock. So I have time to get into the living room and turn on the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. But up until then, I will spend the rest of the time hanging out with everybody in the chat. So let's see how everybody is and what everybody wants to talk about. Oh, God, we're still talking about biological advantages. Sinister Intelligence says, what do you think of a punk anarchist autistic band called the Eclectic People, a band that rages against societal issues like ableism? I think that sounds great. I think that sounds terrific. Irish DC 95 says, I assume ask away means you can ask about any topic within reason. There's a topic about America that I haven't seen addressed as much, although some might find it triggering. I mean, you can ask. Yeah. Go ahead. Go for it. 255 AD says, I found out our neighbor is in the BNP. And got upset. My dad said, well, he seems like a nice bloke. What's a good response to that? If he was a nice bloke, he wouldn't be in the fucking BNP. we get that shit over here too. People say like, well, but he's a nice guy, you know? No, but what? Like just because someone seems superficially polite, like someone could be like a member of the fucking Ku Klux Klan, but if you didn't know it and you ran into him at a barbecue, he might seem like a lovely guy. But once you find out that he's a member of the Ku Klux Klan, guess what? He's not such a fucking lovely guy, is he? Because if he was that lovely of a guy, he wouldn't be a member of the Ku Klux Klan. If your neighbor was that great of a guy, he wouldn't be in the fucking BNP. That's the answer I would say. If he's so great, why is he in the fucking British National Party? What's right? I mean, come on. Kevin C. Jones says, hi, Steve. I appreciate you. Well, thank you very much. My question is, do you have any advice for people who criticize New Trek and those who defend it to get along? There's just so much mindless vitriol. It's the wisdom of the Mystery Science Theater 3000 theme song. Just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax. Here's the thing. If you love new Star Trek or you hate new Star Trek, it is not important enough to have a vitriolic fight with somebody about. Just walk away. Like, if you can't talk about it without fighting, then just walk away and maybe work on not getting so worked up about it. I mean, it's a TV show. It's not worth fighting over. You can have your opinions about it, of course. But if you can't talk about differences in those opinions without getting angry at each other, then just don't talk about it. It's silly. You shouldn't be having arguments over a TV show like that are that heated. It's just it's silly. Just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax. Some Random Geek says, let me do some super chats here real quick. Nick Jeffrey says, hey, Steve, was wondering whether you watched Peacemaker, and if so, what you thought of it. For me, it's one of the best DCEU things so far. I loved Peacemaker. I think it is the best DCEU thing so far. I thought it was brilliant. I loved every second of it. And then a super chat from David Colby, who says, I'm back on my bullshit. I'm writing a Flash Gordon pastiche. Anyway, how is Atan Zardo, the Emperor of Space, as a stand-in for Ming the Merciless? Exquisite. I love that. Atan Zardo, the Emperor of Space. That is fantastic. I highly approve. I unreservedly approve. And Jacob Monroe says, is it worth having a baseball team in Hagerstown? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to have something. You got to do something. What else is there in Hagerstown? Nothing. Some Random Geek says, is it transphobic to say a statement like trans women who have gone through male puberty have advantages over cis women? I'm sure there are contexts in which you can say that it would not be transphobic. The problem is it is almost always used in the context of throwing suspicion at trans women. That's my problem with that phrase, is that people always bring that up as part of an argument to say, or sometimes, if not to outright say, to imply that there's something nefarious going on or something unacceptable or unfair or whatever going on when trans women want to compete in sports alongside cis women. So, I mean, it's not automatically transphobic, but almost every time I hear it, it is in the context of a transphobic argument. Radical Bacon says, what if the new baseball team named themselves in the manner of the Savannah Bananas? So what would they be? Like the Hagerstown Gettin' Downs or something? Like what rhymes with Hagerstown that would make a good baseball team name? Kep Chalmers says Scott Bakula was a nice guy and he was in the Klan in Quantum Leap. Well, was there an episode where he was in the Klan? Maybe there was. There probably was. I don't know. But he was leaping back and forth from life to life within his own lifetime. He couldn't control who he leapt into. It's not Scott Bakula's fault. 255AD says, also, what would you do if you found out a neighbor you've known since childhood is a fascist? It feels weird because I've known this neighbor since I was 11. I mean, it's the same thing that I've said to people before. I mean, it's personally, I would just not talk to them anymore. But I understand that may not be as easy for everybody as it would be for me, but I would just cut them off because life's too short and fuck them. But not everybody wants to or is capable of doing that. But that is what I would do. Super chat from Geigen Greg, who says, off the top of your head, top 10 Superman villains, or top 5 if that's too much in one go. Love your DC vids, my man. Well, thank you very much. Top 5 Superman villains. Lex, Metallo, Parasite, Bizarro, Brainiac, depending on the version. You know, there are certain versions of Brainiac I like more than others, but generally speaking, I think that's a pretty solid top 5. Tom Perry Jones says, do you have any thoughts on Moon Knight? I watched the first episode of it yesterday. I thought it was pretty good. Good enough that I want to keep watching it, you know. I like the effect that they were doing early on when he would sort of black out and come back and the situation around him had changed. Like, I thought that was clever. I think Oscar Isaac so far has given a good performance. I mean, I'm curious enough to want to keep watching it. So yeah, I liked it so far. Only one episode in, but I liked it so far. Hagerstown Underground. Ooh, Radical Bacon. That's really good. I kind of like that. Yeah, the Hagerstown Underground. I like that. Oh man, now I'm going to be disappointed when that's not the name and they name it like the Hubs or something. Dana says, I have at least one former student who has gone into law enforcement. I see her occasionally. I've been struggling with how to respond to this. Yeah, I mean, being a police officer isn't automatically as bad as joining the Klan, but I mean, it's obviously not a profession that would make me happy if someone I knew went into it. Like it's often not an indicator of anything good, given the behavior of cops and just the generally sort of toxic, destructive role that cops have come to play in our culture. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, try to avoid the subject. Try not to mention it. Dana says top 3 female Superman villains. Livewire. That's all I got. I don't know. It's not my fault. Stephen Hart says, did you watch the deleted Joker scene they released from the Batman? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I thought it was a good scene. I'm glad they cut it from the movie. Like, it didn't have any place in the movie. But as like a DVD extra or something, I liked it. I thought it was a good scene. I think Barry Keoghan's take on the Joker was interesting. And I don't know, maybe that might be a better way to use the Joker in these new movies. Instead of doing a movie where the Joker is the main villain, establish the Joker as being around and having tangled with Batman at some point in the past, but now he's in Arkham and occasionally Batman goes to see him for some reason related to the plot. But the Joker is not like the main villain, you know. That might be an interesting angle on it to avoid, you know, the movies repeating themselves again. But yeah, I thought it was a good scene. And another super chat here from Simon Peter Adkins, who says, how culty was Gene Roddenberry? The more I learned, the more the early Trekkies seem like a family, capital F. I don't really know a lot about that, to be honest. I do know that there was definitely kind of a cult of personality around Gene Roddenberry in the early years, and I think Gene probably enjoyed that. You know, I don't think he did as much to discourage that as he might have. So I mean, yeah, there probably was some of that going on. Like, I don't know for sure, but I do know that Gene enjoyed being admired and liked having people who were fans of his work and telling him how great he was. And he probably enjoyed the fact that he could, you know, get laid pretty much anytime he wanted because he was the guy who created Star Trek. So yeah, there's probably some cultish tendencies there. 255 AD says, for that transphobic question, how offensive does a pre-submitted question have to be for you to refuse to respond to it on screen? I guess it has to be more offensive than that. I guess it has to be more offensive than that. M. Loudon, I thought it was the best Batman movie since The Dark Knight. I thought it was goddamn terrific. And I think I mean, I get emo Batman people, but no. I think it's not emo Batman. Like, that's kind of a reductive thing, kind of an epithet to throw at it. No, I thought it was really, really good. I liked it a lot. But if you're waiting for it to be on HBO Max, it's coming out on HBO Max this month, because now it's April. It comes out on HBO Max April 19th. So you can just wait to see it then. You won't have to wait very long. And I hope when you watch it, you enjoy it. I thought it was terrific. Dana, we can put all kinds of female villains in our timeline. Absolutely. We'll fix it. That's part of the fun of writing fanfic, right? So you can identify areas of like shortcomings of the official stuff, and you can be like, oh, we can fix that. Yeah, sure. Some Random Geek says, what about Granny Goodness? Yeah, okay. Sure. I guess she's a Superman villain now, since they decided that Darkseid is a Superman villain. So I guess. David Colby says, you say tabletop RPGs are boring and yet you like baseball. Curious, is it not? Your story is full of holes, Shives. Confess. Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now. It's funny every time people do that. Well, there's a flaw in your question there, David, and the flaw is that tabletop RPGs are boring, while baseball is poetic and majestic and utterly riveting. So it's just a slight flaw in your question. You seem to be implying that baseball is also boring, which is not the case. Which is not the case. Super chat from Geigen Greg. Totally agree with your take on Darkseid. Turning him into a generic alien conqueror is really weak, especially considering Mongol exists and he's great. Yeah, does Superman really need... I mean, how many big, strong, scary space warlords does Superman need in his rogues gallery? I mean, there are so many. There's Darkseid, there's Mongol, Doomsday isn't really a warlord, but still same kind of thing, like big, strong guy from space. Like, Jesus, how many does he need? I don't think he needs any, actually, because I'm really bored by the Superman goes to space and fights people stuff. I like keeping Superman in Metropolis, you know? That's why, if you notice, other than Brainiac, all the villains I named in my top 5 were Earthbound villains. Because I don't care about Superman flying to some other planet and fighting aliens on some other planet. George Reeves never did that shit. Dana says, isn't emo Batman redundant? I mean, my parents are dead and all. Yeah, I guess. M. Loudon 03, the thing is, all the other live action Batmans wear that same makeup. It's just you never see them out of the mask with it. The new Batman movie is the first movie to admit that the dude wears black eye makeup when he has the mask on. The rest of them do too. If Christian Bale just took off the cowl and didn't wipe his face off first, right, he would look exactly the same. So, yeah. I had that was not a problem at all. Sinister Intelligence says, just watch Twister. Love that movie. If the holodeck was real, I would be a character in that movie. Oh boy, well, could you be Bill Paxton's character and instantly improve that movie by about 300%? David Colby with a super chat. Superman should build affordable housing again. Yeah, for sure. 225 AD says, when I told my boomer parents I'm going to stop talking to that guy, they were like, you can't just not talk to people you disagree with. It's rude. Good response to that. Well, yeah, I'm sure you talk to people you disagree with about all sorts of things all the time. But there are certain lines that must be drawn. I mean, it's not as though you disagree. It's not as though you have like, you disagree on what the best football team is, right? It's not as though you disagree on what to have, for dinner, or what your favorite TV show is, or there are disagreements, and then there are disagreements. If the disagreement is you're not a fascist and he is, then that's a not going to talk to that guy kind of disagreement. Like, not all disagreements are created equal. And I find that, and you hear that argument a lot, and that's so disingenuous. Well, can't we all just learn to get along despite our disagreements? Yeah. If you're a Yankees fan and I'm an Orioles fan, we can probably find a way to get along. Probably. But if you are a member of the KKK, no, we can't find a way to get along. And I don't want to get along with you, and I will not waste the energy it would take to try to get along with you because you're in the fucking KKK. Fuck you. So that would be one of the other kinds of disagreements. Kemp Chalmers with a member message that just says, fuck Duke. Okay, I don't know what the leader of G.I. Joe did to upset you, but sure, fuck Duke. Intergalactic Classics says, ever been to York, PA? Opinion either way? Yes, I've been to York. Yes. I've passed through York. I've spent more time in Lancaster than I have in York. I don't think I've ever spent the night in York. I've spent the night in Lancaster. I've never spent the night in York. But they both seem fine. Like, yeah, some random geek, exactly. Disagreements and pineapple on pizza. Yeah, that's a disagreement you can get past. Not fascism is okay. Yeah, Irish DC 95. Good disagreement. Should we raise or cut taxes? Bad disagreement. Should we kick all the people of color out of the country? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. Yeah, for sure. And then Kemp says, go UNC. Okay. What is it? It's like a Final Four thing, right? Okay. Sinister Intelligence. What was wrong with his character? The actor who played him. Some random geek says, how do you feel about the Rocketeer movie? I like the Rocketeer. The Rocketeer is a fun movie. Yeah, I got nothing against the Rocketeer. Radical Bacon says, what does baseball make me think of? Baseball. How much I like baseball. Like, what else does it make? I could say, like, how like they say, like, well, if you want to last longer during sex, then you think about something else. So you think about baseball, right? So I could have said, like, well, baseball, that makes me think of a throbbing erection. Like, but it doesn't. It makes me think of baseball. Exactly, some random geek. Baseball is a metaphor for life. 255 AD says, your town has a water park with one slide. Isn't that something? What more entertainment options do you need, man? A baseball team, obviously. I've been saying it. David Colby says, baseball could be worse. It could be football. I was in marching band. I had to play those damn cheer songs 50,000 times from memory. It was hell. Oh, Nick, did I miss your second super chat? I'm sorry. I will go back and find it. Yeah, I only like baseball because of the Batman. Very nice. Nicely done. I applaud you. I don't know. You say, like, that does sound terrible. And I mean, being compelled to attend that many football games, whether you have to play those songs or not, sounds awful to me because I loathe football. But yes, baseball could be worse in many ways because baseball is wonderful as it is. So, of course, you could find all kinds of ways to make it worse. Super chat from Geiga and Greg, who says, I like to imagine Superman is really annoyed whenever some big alien space guy arrives to personally challenge him when he has 100 better things to do. Exactly. He's like, guys, seriously, there's like a flood over here. I know I heard fire engines a couple minutes ago. Like, I really don't have time for this. That would actually be a really good Superman story. If like some giant alien warlord like comes down and he's like, I have come to challenge the champion of the planet Earth. And Superman's like, all right, look, I really can't do this right now. Like a building just fell down or I can't. I gotta go, you know, and just ignores the guy and just leaves. Jacob Monroe says, do you like or dislike Cyborg Superman? I mean, I don't have strong opinions about him either way. I thought his role in the Death of Superman story was good. I thought it was, you know, obviously when they did the Reign of the Superman and they had the 4 replacement Superman, you knew at least one of them was going to have to turn out to be a bad guy. And I thought the way they did that with Cyborg Superman was clever. So, I mean, you know, it's not like I don't have a whole bunch of ideas like for fanfic stories about Cyborg Superman, but I think he's fine. Some random geek says, I shouldn't encourage the slap, but I totally understand Will Smith's position, but that situation is complex. I have a lot of feels. Yeah. I'm completely okay with it. Like I said on Wednesday when me and Dana were streaming for Trek Reluctantly, I'm completely okay with Will Smith smacking him. Like I have no qualms about it whatsoever. I didn't see it and go, oh no, what's the world coming to? I saw it and went, oh yeah, I totally get that. I'm completely fine with that. And yeah, but Stephen Hart is completely right there. The Will Smith slap is being made into more of a big deal than it should be. That's completely true. It's not that big of a deal. You know? If it had happened, if people had done it in private, if somebody had made fun of somebody's wife like at a barbecue or something and got smacked, people watching would be like, oh yeah. Oh, he was talking shit about the dude's wife. He had that coming, right? Yeah, David Colby, exactly. Talk shit, get hit. 255 AD says, last question on the subject. My parents said he doesn't really do much about it or talk about it much in the pub. He's just in the party. What's a good response to that? If it means so little to him, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal for him to quit that horrible party. Like there has to be some reason he's in the party, right? And if there isn't, if he just joined it when he was a kid and he's changed his mind about stuff and he doesn't believe in the tenets of that party anymore, then why doesn't he register with another party? If he really is a good dude and the party doesn't represent his beliefs, then there's a real easy way to demonstrate that. Register with another party, or at least deregister with that party. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? Come on. Nick Jeffrey, I have heard that. Will Smith used a slap instead of a punch because paper beats rock. It sure does. Radical Bacon says, what would your grandmother think of your redecorations? I mean, it's not really her style. But I don't think she would be mortified. I don't think she would be like, oh my God, what have you done? Like, you know, because really all I've done is, it's a super chat from Intergalactic Classics. No, I have never read Cerebus. I've never read, so I can't offer an opinion. I've never read Cerebus. Yeah, I mean, you know, in the living room now I have Batman posters. And of course here in the bedroom, I have my action figures and my, in our American flag framed up there. So, I mean, it's not exactly her style, but I don't think she would be mortified. I mean, if she were here, but if she somehow were still alive, but I were living in this house and it was my house, I think she would expect me to make it my own, you know? So I don't think she would have a problem with it. And even if she did, I'm the one who fucking lives here now. Kim Chalmers says the Will Smith slap was very upsetting. Chris Rock is like 150 soaking wet. Will is at least 205. Well, then Chris shouldn't have been talking shit. And look, Will Smith didn't beat Chris Rock up. He didn't hurt him. He didn't put him in the hospital. Everybody, I've heard that a lot before. Like, well, Will Smith he's so much bigger than Chris Rock. He could have killed him. Yeah, but he wasn't even trying to hurt him. He slapped him once with an open hand. I mean, he didn't take a hold of him. He didn't punch him. He didn't knock him down. He didn't use his size in any appreciable way. He just smacked him. And he had it coming. So I'm not bothered by it at all. Daryl Lett says, what does the little town of Sharpsburg lack that you wish it had so you didn't have to drive a long way to find one? Well, I don't live in Sharpsburg anymore. Since my wife and I split up, I live in Hagerstown now. But same kind of question. An A&W. The closest A&W is in Charlestown, West Virginia, which is about a 40-minute drive from here. I'd love it if we had an A&W in town because I do like A&W's food. It's really nice to go out because I'm a vegetarian most of the time, but on Saturday I allow myself a cheat day, and every once in a great while I will drive down to Charlestown to the A&W to get lunch or dinner at the A&W, and oh, so good. But if there was an A&W in Hagerstown, I could get it all the time. Or, every Saturday anyway. But alas, Lisa Garrison says, do I have any anecdotes about trolling I have experienced? No, not really. I mean, I have been trolled a lot, but most of it has escaped my notice because I just ignore it. So I don't really have like trolling stories, and I don't find it terribly interesting. I mean, I think it's a shitty thing to do, and I think most people who do it a lot, who spend a lot of their time trolling people, are just deeply uninteresting people. So, it doesn't really. Sinister Intelligence says, "Why don't you like what don't you like about Bill Paxton?" I just think he was a really crummy actor. I mean, that's it's nothing personal. I'm sure in real life he was a nice guy. I just think he was a really, really, really crummy actor. Kemp Chalmers, he had it coming because he made fun of Jada Pinkett for being bald, even though she's bald because of a medical condition. And apparently it wasn't the first time he's made fun of her. Apparently there's like a history of Chris Rock talking shit about Jada Pinkett. So like on stage in public. So maybe this was like a last straw situation where Will was like, all right, fuck this. Chris Rock made a joke about his wife's alopecia, or about his wife's bald head that is the product of alopecia, and saw that it bothered her. And he was like, fuck this. This is enough of this. And he stood up and he smacked the shit out of him. And then he sat down and he said, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. Because it wasn't just in his mouth that time. Apparently it's been in his mouth a couple of times before in public, in front of an audience. So Will said, fuck you. Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. This is what you get. And again, no problem with that whatsoever. Intergalactic Classics with a super chat says, would baseball be better with storylines a la wrestling? No. No, baseball doesn't need to be worked. That's the thing. Wrestling is worked. Wrestling is a sport that is not really a sport. It is a form of theater that is presented as though it is a sport. Baseball is a legitimate sport. And I think it's the best sport. So no, I don't think baseball needs wrestling storylines. Nick Jeffrey says, I've been very interested by your take on season 2 of Picard. I personally have really enjoyed the season and have been looking forward to each episode. Nevertheless, I respect your opinion. Well, thank you. I'm glad you respect my opinion, and I'm glad you're enjoying it, even though I haven't been enjoying it so much. I'm happy that other people have liked the show, and then it brings a little bit of happiness and joy into people's lives, even though I don't think it's been very good. I think that's terrific. Kemp, there's no problem with assaulting people in that case. Not in that particular instance. No, I have no problem with it. I'm not gonna take to the fainting couch and be like, oh, I can't believe you hit him. And I'm not gonna get all shake my finger and go, violence is always wrong. A dude insulted another dude's wife and the dude got up and smacked him. It's not that big of a deal. It's not, it's not a harbinger of the fall of civilization. And personally, I have no problem with what Will Smith did. 255 AD says, would I want it to be legal to assault people who insult you? No, I wouldn't. Not really. Let's add another layer to this. If Chris Rock had decided to press charges, Chris Rock decided not to press charges. If he had decided to press charges, I think he would have been completely within his rights to do that. That would have been something that would have been a consequence that Will Smith would have had to deal with. He probably would have had an easier time dealing with it as a rich movie star than someone not in that position, but nevertheless, he would have still had to deal with it somehow. No, I don't think it should be legal to assault people, but the question isn't, do you think it should be legal? The question is, do I personally have a problem with it? Do I think he did anything wrong? And no, I don't. But I understand why, because we want to have an orderly society, we can't just have it be legal for people to go around smacking the shit out of other people. So if Chris Rock had chosen to get the law involved and press charges, I think he would have been within his rights to do that. And he would have had a pretty good case since it happened on TV. But doesn't change the fact that I don't think Will Smith did anything wrong. And I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. I mean, if he does feel shame or embarrassment, that's up to him. That's his reaction. And he has apologized, and maybe he felt like he had to apologize for public relations, and maybe he is genuinely sorry. And if so, good for him. But personally, I don't think he has anything to be sorry about, because I don't think he did anything wrong. David Colby says, heck, there's a legal thing about this. Fighting words. There are words that count as a reason to escalate. We have it written up. Yeah, exactly. Like if somebody starts talking shit about baseball. I mean, they're practically, it's the national pastime. And you start opening you keep baseball out of your fucking mouth. Talking shit about baseball. Them's fighting words. No court in the country would convict me. David, you have nothing to worry about. For one thing, I don't really know where you live. And I'm just not a violent person. I would never. I feel like I'd be completely morally justified, but I would never. Juma Joe Railroad says, I'm amazed how many questions and comments are being tossed at you about Will Smith. I know, right? Like I have any special perspective or expertise on the matter. Radical Bacon, I believe once upon a time in the WWF, and I guess probably in the mid 1990s, in like 95, maybe 94, 95, I think there was a baseball player or there was a wrestler with a baseball gimmick. It was terrible. And also, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, he was a baseball player before he was a wrestler. He was a minor league baseball player. So, it wasn't a gimmick. He really was. Homebody, you are right. The Thief of Baghdad is a great flick. Absolutely. It's a wonderful movie. David Colby, good to know. Good to know. I will write that down, and I will pay you a visit at 1234 America Street, America. Seth Jones says, I've been working from home for over 2 years now. What do you do to keep yourself sane? Honestly, it hasn't been that much of a challenge for me because I worked from home and kept to myself anyway. Like in terms of my lifestyle, COVID hasn't really changed much of anything. I have always been the type of person that kept to myself, that didn't really socialize, especially with like large groups. I haven't really felt any kind of cabin fever at all. And as far as working from home, I mean, I have a lot of work to do. And when I'm working, I focus on the work and that keeps me busy, you know? 2D5 AD says, is there a misogynist angle to the I must defend my women thing? Oh, absolutely. It can very easily be a very like a paternalistic thing. Yeah, for sure. There's certainly a misogynist angle to that. Yeah, that can become toxic very quickly. True Yellow Dart, most anticipated WrestleMania match. You mean this year? None. I'm not watching it. I don't watch WWE anymore. I'm not anticipating any WrestleMania matches because I don't give a shit. I'm not going to watch it. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I will be watching the Ring of Honor pay-per-view tonight, and the most anticipated match for me there is the tag team title match, the Briscoes versus FTR. I'm super hyped about that. Geigen Greg says, what's your take on Doomsday being from Krypton? Maybe I'm nitpicking, but I prefer Doomsday as this weird outside context problem, like a Silver Age story gone tragically wrong. Yeah, I don't see why he has to be from Krypton. I think it's better if he's just from someplace else. But I mean, my preference would be just not to deal with him at all, because that's the part of Superman that I just don't find interesting. But yeah, if you're going to do Doomsday, he doesn't, there's no reason for him. There's no reason for anything to do with Krypton other than possibly General Zod, because General Zod can be kind of a fun character and there's some history there. But I mean, other than General Zod showing up, there's no reason to bring Krypton into anything in Superman's present day. Krypton is gone. The only thing you need to know about Krypton is that it exploded. So we don't need to talk about Krypton anymore. It's gone. Radical Bacon says, will I be popping popcorn tonight? I thought about it, but I don't think I will because I'm still really full from dinner. I made a really big dinner that I ate like right before the show. And I think I'm still going to be kind of full. Like I'm still full from it right now, and I'm ending the stream in probably about 10 minutes to go watch wrestling. So I don't think I will be popping popcorn tonight, but under other circumstances, I certainly would. Yes, I do often pop popcorn when I'm watching like a big wrestling show. Sinister Intelligence late seating podcast on Twister one day. I don't know. Probably not. I don't think it's culturally significant enough. Joe McClory, for the love of the game, that's the other Kevin Costner one, right? That's the one where he's pitching the perfect game and he's like reflecting on his life while he's pitching the perfect game. I don't like that one so much. I don't think that's, I mean, no, I think of the Costner baseball trilogy, I think it's definitely the least of them. It's not as good as Bull Durham, and it's definitely not anywhere near as good as Field of Dreams. I think it's kind of a corny, cheesy movie. I'm not a big fan of it. Lisa, no, I never actually read Final Crisis, and I haven't read Super Gods, so I can't offer an opinion on any of those. I don't know if we'll ever do Demolition Man either, but I mean, I think we might do Demolition Man before Twister just feels like kind of a forgotten movie, you know? True Yellow Dart says, follow-up wrestling question, any issue with the Briscoes' real-life politics and their kayfabe characters? Well, I mean, the only thing I know about the Briscoes' politics is that one of them I can't remember if it was Jay or Mark, but one of them tweeted some really homophobic stuff a while back, like maybe 10 years ago or something. And I think they have since apologized for it. But it still sucks. I mean, the things they tweeted were terribly homophobic, and there's no excuse for that. But they you know, they've apologized, and they say that doesn't reflect their true feelings and whatever. And you know, okay, hopefully that's true, but that's all I really know about their politics. So I don't know. I mean, and the thing about being a wrestling fan is you kind of have to. You don't have to. You can choose not to, and that's completely within your rights to do that. But you get practice at not caring about stuff like that, because I mean, there are more prominent wrestlers today with not shitty politics than there have been in the past. But that is still something that pops up from time to time, where you'll, like, a wrestler will say something or express some opinion, and you'll be like, oh, Jesus Christ. You know, it sucks. It's really tough. But I guess I've gotten practiced at overlooking it. But I mean, yeah, there are things to overlook, I guess, is the point. Super chat from Geigen Greg, who says, thoughts on Superman 3? It gets a lot of deserved flack, but it was my first exposure to Superman, and I think it's still surprisingly tight and fun. I don't have, I mean, it's not as good as Superman or Superman 2. It's not like, I don't even know if I would call it a good movie necessarily, but it's not like so bad it's not like so bad I can't watch it or anything. And I'll tell you what, the junkyard scene is right up there with any scene from any Superman movie. That junkyard scene is fantastic, where Superman he's literally torn apart. He's been affected by the synthetic kryptonite, and he's been acting like an asshole for half the movie, and now he's finally reached a breaking point, and he splits into two people, and there's Clark Kent representing the good half of his nature, and there's the sort of polluted, fallen Superman representing the evil half of his nature. And they have this awesome fight in the middle of a junkyard, and it's just it's terrific. It's fantastic. For that one scene, it becomes a great goddamn Superman movie. So I have affection for Superman 3. I can't really defend it as a good movie all the way through, but I have affection for it, and I particularly really like that scene. Maud Mouse. Yes, the baseball cap comes off. Yes, of course. It's actually come off in videos before. I do take it off from time to time. Vidicus says, am I for or against the Freebird rule? I am for the Freebird rule. Honestly, there's many decades of precedent for the Freebird rule. I'm completely fine with the Freebird rule. Or as WWF fans might call it, the demolition rule. Some Random Geek says, thoughts on Superman 4? It's worse than Superman 3. It's pretty bad, but it's bad in a fun, entertaining way. Like, it's not a good movie at all, but it's so bad that you can watch it, especially if you're watching it with friends and you're making fun of it. It's a really great time. And again, I have some affection for it because even though it's a lousy movie, it's the last time Christopher Reeve ever played Superman. So it'll always have a special place in my heart for that reason. But no, I mean, it's not a good movie. 285 AD, no, I didn't look it up, but I think I know what you're talking about. The string-based dick and balls support that you mentioned. I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't know that I didn't look it up, but I think I can picture what you're talking about. Oh, Nick Jeffrey, yes, the scene where Vera gets pulled into the computer. Yeah, that is a creepy scene. That's a good scene. And I'll tell you another scene in Superman 3 that I really like. The scene itself isn't necessarily a good scene, but this moment is a really good moment. It's after Gus gives the the synthetic kryptonite to Superman, and at first it seems to have no effect on him. Like he just kind of picks it up and it doesn't do anything. So Gus calls Ross and he tells him, and he's like, "Oh, I gave the fake kryptonite to Superman, and Superman didn't die." And Ross says, "I asked you to kill Superman, and you're telling me you couldn't even do that one simple thing." And then he just lets go of the phone and it just slides down his face and drops to the floor. It's exquisite. Hey, CMAC, you just made it in time for me to almost be done with the show. I'm ending the stream in a few minutes, but I'm glad you could make it. I answered your question. You can go watch it later, I guess. Radical Bacon, I don't know if I've walked all the paths at Antietam. I've walked most of them, maybe all of them, but maybe not quite. But no, I have certain walks that I like to take. I don't know if I have a single favorite, but I have certain walks that I like to take. Yeah, there's a nice long walk. So it takes you around across Burnside Bridge and around the field and then through the woods and way back around the final attack trail that is really nice because most of it is through the woods. And then there's a little spur you can take off to the side through a Boy Scout camp, which has some trees I like to climb. So that's a favorite one. And then there's another one on the other side of the battlefield that starts at Bloody Lane. And again, like kind of goes around, follows the creek for a while, and then comes back around the other side. There are a couple of really nice long walks at Antietam that I enjoy. So yeah, okay. So I think I am going to wrap up the show now and go watch my wrestling pay-per-view that starts at 8. So I just want to Joe, have I gone down enough paths that we can call me a man? I believe so. I think I know. I can't put a number on it exactly, but I believe I have walked down enough roads, enough paths to call me a man for sure. Anyway, that's it for the show. I want to remind everybody about the charity links down below, charitylinks.page. Help out some folks, some friends of ours who need a helping hand if you possibly can. If you want to support my channel, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron or click the join button to become a member. I really appreciate your financial donations and your monthly support. It enables me to continue doing what I do. I couldn't do it without you. So to everybody who is a patron and a member, thank you so much. And for those of you who enjoy my work and you would like to support it and on an ongoing basis, there you go. Click the join button and become a member or become a patron at patreon.com. Also, don't forget the podcasts that I am a co-host on, the Let Me Listen podcasts. The Ensign's Log is on hiatus for a few more weeks. But in the meantime, Jason and I are still producing new episodes of Late Seating. We have a new episode that we are recording just this weekend that will go up next week. And the Ensign's Log will be back in a few weeks with myself and Dana and Jason as we embark on the next part of our journey. It will be our 5th season of the podcast, and our characters will be entering into what would be the 3rd season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it'll be very, very exciting for all of us, but that'll be later this month, I would think, will be when the Ensign's Log will come back. But yeah, links to all of that are in the description of this video. Don't forget also, tomorrow on Dana's YouTube channel is her next live stream, the Saturday 6. The link to tomorrow's Saturday 6 is in the description of this video. I will be watching and hanging out in the live chat as always, as Dana does her live stream and shares 6 pieces of good news from the past week. It's always a good show, and hopefully I'll see a bunch of you there in the live chat on Dana's channel. So again, link to that in the description. That is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Dana's YouTube channel. So I am off to watch some wrestling. Thank you all so much for joining me, for being with me. Thank you all so much for the questions and the comments and the super chats and everything. I appreciate it. And take care, everybody. Have a good weekend. I'll see you around. Bye, everybody.